Two little black twin girls asked the mountain man for help. He started crying right away. That's what people in Whetstone Hollow are talking about. But nobody saw what those tiny girls held in their hands or what their words did to that sad man's heart. He was like a shadow in the mountains, old, quiet, and a bit scary. Nobody had seen him for years. Then these two small girls showed up, all wet from the rain, saying a name he hadn't heard in forever and asking for help that might cost him everything. Now the town's waiting to see what happens. The railroad's getting closer, and the man who disappeared is now facing danger. Not with a gun, but with something stronger, a chance to start over. Dust is swirling. Old secrets are waking up, and the past is stomping back into today. Who were those girls looking for? And why did their plea make the toughest man in the West cry? Every time I read your comments, I'm reminded how stories bring us together, no matter where we're from. If you believe in things like kindness, bravery, and caring, you're part of this story too. Thunder boomed across the Montana sky as Boaz McCrae swung his axe into another log. His old hands, rough from 67 years of hard living, held the axe handle easily. A bit of spring snow still covered the mountain ridge like a white sheet, but the air felt like rain was coming. Dark clouds rolled over the Rockies, making long shadows. Over his small log cabin, the old scout stopped to wipe sweat off his face, even though it was chilly. His joints hurt more lately, especially when storms were near. Still, he had to chop wood. It was the work of a man living alone, matching his quiet life. Chopping wood felt good, like it pushed away the sad memories that followed him. Big raindrops started falling as another thunderclap shook the mountains. Boaz picked up his chopped logs to keep them dry before the rain got worse. That's when he heard it, a faint sound he thought he imagined. A soft, steady knock at his cabin door. Out here in the mountains, visitors were super rare. Boaz set down his logs and walked carefully to the door, his hand near the gun on his hip. The knocking came again, soft but urgent. When he opened the heavy door, his heart almost stopped. Two little girls stood together on his doorstep, their dark skin shiny with rain. They looked about 6 years old, exactly alike, like twins. Their feet were bare and muddy, their plain cotton dresses all wet. One held a ragged doll with one eye missing, and the other hugged a worn Bible like it was treasure. The slightly taller girl, though you could barely tell, stepped forward just a bit. Her voice shook, but stayed strong. Mama said, "Find the man with the crow tattoo." Boaz felt his face go pale. With shaky fingers, he pulled up his left sleeve, showing a faded tattoo he'd had for years, a black crow with its wings spread wide on his arm. That tattoo had made him feel ashamed for so long, but now it seemed to mean something new as these two lost girls looked up at him with eyes full of hope. His knees gave out, and he dropped to the floor, tears running down his rough cheeks. The past he'd tried to hide had found him, brought by two little angels in wet clothes. "Lord, help me," he whispered, his voice rough with feelings. Then, seeing the girls shiver, he said, come in quick, you're freezing." Boaz picked them both up, their small bodies shaking against him. He shut the door against the storm and carried them to the fireplace, where a few embers still glowed from his morning fire. He set them down gently and wrapped them in a thick buffalo blanket he used in winter. "Stay there, little ones," he said, already adding wood to the fire. He piled on small sticks and logs until the flames grew bright, lighting up the cabin's one room. From his small food stash, he grabbed leftover cornbread and warmed a pot of beans by the fire. The girls sat close under their blanket, watching him with big, serious eyes. When he gave them plates of food, they showed good manners, even though they were hungry. They waited for his nod before eating and said, "Thank you, sir. Can I know your names?" Boaz asked gently after they'd eaten a bit. The Boulder twin spoke first, her voice super soft. "I'm Addie Ellis," she said, nudging her sister. "Ada Ellis," the other said, even quieter, holding her one-eyed doll tighter for courage. Boaz's heart hurt when he heard the name. Ellis. He knew it the moment they mentioned the tattoo, but hearing it made it real. "And your mama?" he asked carefully. "Her name was Ruth?" Both girls nodded, looking sad. Addie spoke again, standing tall like she was carrying a heavy load. Mama got sick 3 nights ago. She told us to wait till—" Her voice broke, but she kept going. "Till she stopped breathing. Then we had to find you. She said look for the cabin with the split pine tree out front, and the man with the crow tattoo would help us." The wind screamed outside, matching the storm. In Boaz's heart, Ruth Ellis. He hadn't heard that name said out loud in over 20 years, but it lived in his mind every day. Ruth, who saw good in him when he couldn't see it himself. Ruth, who forgave him when he didn't deserve it. And now Ruth was gone, sending her daughters to him. Thunder boomed, making both girls jump. Ada cried quietly, tears running down her face. Without thinking, Boaz reached out and wiped her tears with his rough thumb. "You're safe now," he said, his voice thick with feelings. "Your mama was right to send you here." The words felt odd, but he knew they were true. Whatever his past mistakes, Ruth trusted him with her daughters' lives. He wouldn't let her down. The storm roared outside, but inside, Boaz kept the fire warm. He watched as the girls got sleepy, their heads drooping even as they tried to stay awake. He made a bed for them near the fire with his blankets and extra quilts to keep them cozy. As he tucked them in, Addie's grip on the Bible loosened, and he saw papers sewn into its binding. It reminded him of something. Ruth was clever about hiding important things, but that was a puzzle for later. For now, the girls needed sleep. Boaz sat in his chair by the fire, ready to watch over them all night. His mind spun with memories and questions. But one thing was clear. His lonely life ended when those girls knocked on his door. Ruth's last act was to trust him with her treasures, giving him a chance to make things right. Gray morning light came through the cabins, only window waking Boaz from his watch. During the night, Addie and Ada had moved from their bed, curling up like kittens at his feet. His old bones ached from sitting in the chair, but he didn't want to wake them. The fire was low, just embers now. Moving quietly, Boaz added sticks and logs until the flames came back. He filled a pot with water to boil and scooped oats from his barrel. A bit of honey would make the plain oats tastier for the girls. As the porridge cooked, Ada woke first, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. Her movement woke Addie, who grabbed her sister's hand right away. That small gesture showed how they faced the world together. "Morning, little ones," Boaz said softly. "Breakfast's almost ready." The girls watched him spoon hot porridge into bowls, their eyes following every move. When he drizzled honey on top, their tired faces lit up. "Thank you, sir," they said together, taking the bowls carefully. Boaz sat back with his coffee, watching them eat. Questions that kept him up all night bubbled up. Finally, he asked, "Can you tell me how you got here?" Addie swallowed her porridge and said, "We walked from Dusty Bend, following the river like Mama showed us." Boaz's heart skipped. Dusty Bend was a place he knew, a settlement of Cherokee freedmen, 2 days' walk south of his cabin. "Your mama showed you the way?" he asked. Ada nodded. "She took us walking lots of times, said we should know the path in case—" Her voice faded. "In case something happened to her," Addie finished, squeezing her sister's hand. "Mama said, look for the split pine tree and the man with the crow picture on his arm. He'll help us." Boaz's coffee cup shook in his hands. Ruth Ellis had been alive all these years, just 2 days away. That hit him hard. 20 years ago, during the messy time after the war, he was a Union scout when he saved her from a burning camp. The memory of smoke and screams still haunted him. He got her to safety, but in the chaos, he lost track of her. All these years, he thought she died like so many others. "Your mama," he said carefully, "was a brave woman. I knew her a long time ago." Both girls looked up, forgetting their food for a moment. "She said you helped her," Ada said shyly. "When?" "There was a bad fire." Boaz nodded, his throat tight. These kids didn't know the whole story of that night, how his actions helped start that fire. Ruth's forgiveness was something he never felt he deserved. After breakfast, Boaz heated water. The girls needed a bath after their long trip. He pulled out his wooden tub, setting it near the fire. With soap and clean rags, he helped them wash, one at a time, while the other stayed wrapped in a buffalo blanket. Their clothes were still wet and muddy from the storm. Boaz dug through his trunk and found 2 old flannel shirts. With a few stitches, he turned them into big, cozy dresses for the girls. The day passed with small chores, feeding the chickens, keeping the fire going, answering the girls' quiet questions. As evening came, the girls got sleepy again. Boaz made their bed by the fire with extra quilts. Once they were asleep, he went to the corner of the cabin where an old trunk sat. His hands shook as he opened it. Under folded clothes and old memories, he found two things: a tarnished silver locket and a sealed letter, yellow with age. The letter came 10 years ago, in Ruth's neat handwriting. He'd been too ashamed to open it. What right did he have to read words from a woman whose community he helped destroy? So he kept it hidden with the locket she gave him that awful night, telling him to keep it safe until they met again. Now, watching the twins sleep by the fire, Boaz broke the seal. The paper crinkled as he opened it, and Ruth's words from 10 years ago shook him. "Dear Boaz, I hope this letter finds you. I've tried to write so many times, but words were hard. Now I write for my children's sake. I have twin daughters, beautiful and strong. They're my joy and my worry. Life is hard for our people, as you know. If anything happens to me, I name you their guardian. You might wonder why I chose you. I never forgot your kindness that night, or how sorry you were for what happened. You helped me when others didn't. That crow on your arm showed you saw the good in everyone, even when it cost you. I've shown the girls how to find you. They know to look for your cabin if they're ever alone. Please, Boaz, don't let guilt stop you from helping them. You once asked how I could forgive you. This is my answer. By trusting you with my precious girls, they carry my Bible, with papers in its binding proving their free status and my wishes for their care. Keep them safe, Boaz. Help them grow strong and kind in this tough world. With hope and trust, Ruth Ellis." The firelight danced on the cabin walls as Boaz sat in his old chair, Ruth's letter shaking in his hands. He'd read it so many times, the words stuck in his mind. His eyes moved to Addie and Ada, sleeping like mice by the fire, their little chests moving up and down together. Ruth's words echoed. "The only man I trusted to see color and not run." Her trust felt heavy. These girls needed more than a hermit's life: school, proper clothes, friends to play with. He looked at the cabin's rough walls, seeing it differently now. This wasn't a place to raise two young girls. As dawn crept in, Boaz moved with purpose. He pulled out his old travel gear, checking straps and patches carefully. His mule, Jenny, needed to be packed just right. Too much weight would slow them down on the mountain paths. The girls woke as he worked, their eyes wide at the sight of him packing. "Are we leaving?" Ada's voice trembled, her hand grabbing her sister's. "Yes, little one," Boaz said gently. "This mountain's too lonely for kids. We need to find you a school and things like that." He helped them dress warmly, layering their thin dresses with his smallest wool shirts and an old coat he cut to fit. He made mittens from rabbit fur to keep their hands warm in the cold spring air. He wrapped their feet in soft leather before putting on their muddy boots. The sun was just rising when Boaz led his horse, Storm, and Jenny the mule out of the lean-to. He'd turned an old crate into a basket, lining it with furs and blankets. He secured it to Jenny's back and lifted the girls in, tucking blankets around them. "It's not a fancy wagon," he said, checking the straps, "but it'll keep you warm and safe." The trip down the mountain was slow. Boaz led Storm and Jenny carefully, picking each path with care. The girls stayed quiet in their basket, sometimes pointing at birds or whispering to each other when sunlight broke through the clouds. By noon, they reached a creek with bits of ice on it. Boaz decided to stop and eat. He helped the girls out of the basket, watching them stretch their legs. "Let's make a fire," he said, gathering dry wood. "You two could use something warm to eat." While the girls stayed near the fire, Boaz checked his snares. Luck was with them. A fat rabbit was caught. He cleaned it far from the girls' sight, then made a stew with dried vegetables from his supplies. As the stew cooked and the day warmed, something sweet happened. Addie pointed at a chipmunk running across a log, and Ada giggled, a clear, happy sound that surprised them both. Soon they were both laughing, sharing a sisterly joke. That sound warmed Boaz's heart. He stirred the stew, acting like he didn't notice as they played, chasing each other in little circles by the fire. "Are you our grandpa now?" Addie asked suddenly, stopping to look at him with serious eyes. Boaz stirred the stew slowly, picking his words. "No," he said softly, meeting her eyes. "I'm just someone your mama believed in." That night, they camped under the stars, wrapped in blankets under a canvas tent. The girls fell asleep fast, but Boaz stayed awake, watching the fire and thinking about Ruth's trust. The next morning brought snow, too thick to travel. Boaz used the time to tell the girls stories about their mother's bravery, leaving out the scary parts. They spent another night in the tent, the girls now brave enough to ask about the noises in the dark. "That's just a whip-poor-will," Boaz would say. Or, "That's an owl looking for dinner." Each answer made them less scared. On the third day, they reached Whetstone Hollow. Boaz stopped Storm at the top of the last ridge, his heart pounding at the sight of smoke rising from chimneys below. It had been 14 years since he'd walked those streets, choosing the mountain's quiet over the town's judging eyes. The girls sat up in their basket, eyes wide at the houses and streets below. "Is that where we're going?" Ada whispered. Boaz nodded, his throat tight. For these girls, he'd faced the town's whispers. "Yes," he said, finding his courage. "That's where we're going." He clicked his tongue, urging Storm down the path into town, into a future he never expected. The afternoon sun made long shadows as Boaz led Storm and Jenny down Whetstone Hollow's dusty main street. People stopped and stared, their voices falling quiet. Women pulled their kids closer, and men watched with hard eyes. Whispers followed like falling leaves. Addie and Ada stayed close to Boaz, holding his old coat. He kept a hand on each of their shoulders, guiding them gently. Their boots, still wrapped in leather, made soft sounds on the dirt. Martha Tooley's house was at the edge of town, a clean white building with herb gardens on both sides. Dried plants hung from the porch, smelling of yarrow, sage, and sweetgrass, bringing back memories. Boaz's throat tightened as he climbed the porch steps, the girls still holding on to him. Before he could knock, the door opened. Martha Tooley stood there, her black hair streaked with silver, pulled into a neat braid. Her dark eyes widened, taking in Boaz's gray beard, worn clothes, and the two small girls behind him. "Good Lord," she said softly. Then her face softened like melting snow. "Well, don't just stand there. Come in." She stepped back, waving them inside. The house smelled of cornbread and herbs. It was just as Boaz remembered, clean, with wooden floors and shelves full of medical supplies and books. A kettle hummed on the stove. "Sit," Martha said, pulling out chairs at her kitchen table. "You all look hungry." She moved fast, setting out plates of cornbread, beans, and apple preserves. The girls stared at the fancy plates. "It's okay," Boaz whispered. "Miss Martha's a friend." He helped them into chairs, their feet swinging above the floor. Martha poured sweet milk for the girls and coffee for herself and Boaz. As the girls ate, Boaz told the story, finding them at his door, Ruth's letter, their trip down the mountain. His voice got rough when he said Ruth's name. "Ruth Ellis?" Martha said softly, shaking her head. "I remember her. Strong hands, gentle heart. She helped me deliver babies around here. Black and Cherokee both." She looked at the girls. "I see her in them, clear as day." Addie and Ada had finished eating and were struggling to stay awake. Martha took them to a small bedroom off the kitchen, tucking them into a real bed with a colorful quilt. They fell asleep fast. Back in the kitchen, Martha got serious. Ruth claimed land outside town, 20 acres by Sweetwater Creek. She had all the right papers from the Freedmen's Bureau and Cherokee Nation. "I keep records for folks around here. Give me a day or two to check my files. Those girls might have more than just memories." As the sun set, another knock came. Reverend Josiah Bell stood on the porch, his silver hair glowing in the last light. His dark face was lined, but he stood tall. He took off his black hat as Martha opened the door. "Heard the girls made it to town," he said quietly, his eyes. "Found Boaz, and something heavy passed between them." Martha let him in. "They're sleeping, but you can see them if you want." The Reverend walked to the bedroom door carefully. He stood there a long time, one hand on the doorframe. "They have Ruth's eyes," he said softly, his hands shaking a bit. After Martha went to bed, Boaz and Josiah sat at the kitchen table. The lamp cast shadows on the walls. They didn't talk for a while. 14 years, Josiah said finally, his voice low. 14 years since that night at the camp. Boaz's shoulders slumped. "Not a day goes by I don't think about it. You were a Union scout supposed to protect." The words carried old pain and anger. "I was wrong," Boaz said simply. "Orders or not, I was wrong. Those families trusted us and we let them down." He met Josiah's eyes. "I've carried that shame every day." Josiah's hands clasped together on the table. "I lost friends in that fire. Good people. Who came from Georgia on my underground line." He stopped, breathing deep. "I know," Boaz said softly. "I know." The clock ticked as the men sat quietly. Finally, Josiah spoke. "Ruth forgave you. Must have. To trust you with her girls. Maybe it's time I did too." A small whimper came from the bedroom. Both men turned. Addie stood in the doorway, clutching her doll. "Bad dream?" Boaz asked gently. She nodded, her lip trembling. Josiah stood smoothly. "Want to hear a story about your mama?" he asked kindly. "About how she sang so sweet, even birds stopped to listen." Addie nodded eagerly. "Well then," Josiah said, leading her back to the bedroom. "Let me tell you about her voice." Boaz listened as Josiah told stories of Ruth's courage and kindness. Soon, both girls were awake, loving the tales of their mother. Their giggles floated out to the kitchen, where Boaz sat, his coffee cold. The night got deeper, and the girls fell asleep to Josiah humming an old song. He came back to the kitchen. "Those kids need more than stories," he said. "They need a home, school, a future." "I'll make sure they get it," Boaz said. "Whatever it takes." Josiah nodded. "You'll have my help and the church's. Martha's too, I bet. She was on your side the moment you showed up." He paused at the door, looking back. "We can't change the past, but maybe we can do right by these girls now." Boaz watched through the window as Josiah walked into the night. The past was still heavy, but there was hope now, too, fragile like the two girls sleeping nearby. Morning sun lit up Whetstone Hollow's dusty street as Boaz and Martha walked to the land office. The small building sat between the store and the telegraph office, its windows dusty. Inside, it smelled of old papers. A thin clerk in a striped shirt looked up, fixing his glasses. "We're here about Ruth Ellis's land claim," Martha said firmly. 20 acres on Sweetwater Creek." The clerk's fingers tapped nervously. Yes, the Ellis land. That was sold months ago." "Sold?" Boaz's voice was quiet but sharp. "To who?" "The Wesley Pacific Railroad bought it," the clerk said quickly, not meeting their eyes. "All routine?" Martha leaned forward. "I want to see the sale papers." The clerk tugged his collar. "Those aren't here right now. It was routine, you know. Lots of sales like that these days." "Routine?" Martha's voice was icy. "Ruth was my friend. She'd never sell that land. It was for her girls." The clerk shrugged, looking uneasy. "Talk to Mr. Hall at the railroad office if you have questions." Martha straightened. "Maybe we'll talk to Elijah Flint instead." The clerk paled at the lawyer's name. Outside, Martha touched Boaz's arm. "Elijah Flint handles land cases for freedmen families. He'll know if something's wrong." Meanwhile, at the parsonage by the church, Reverend Bell sat with the twins in his study. Morning light warmed the floor as he told them about their mother. "Your mama had a special way with people," he said gently. "When someone was scared or hurt, she knew how to make them feel brave." Ada sat on the floor, fixing her doll's dress. Addie sat on a chair, holding their mother's Bible. "She used to sing to us," Ada said softly, "every night before bed." Reverend Bell smiled. "Her voice could lift your heart higher than church bells." Addie's fingers touched the Bible's worn cover. "Mama said there were important papers in here for safekeeping." Bell leaned forward. "Can I see?" Addie handed him the Bible. He noticed loose stitching on the cover. Carefully, he pulled the threads, finding a folded paper inside, yellow but crisp. "This is a land deed," he said quietly, surprised. It says you girls own your mama's 20 acres on Sweetwater Creek. The twins looked at each other, not fully understanding, but feeling it was important. Your mama was smart, Belle said, folding the paper. She made sure you'd be taken care of. As the sun set, horses' hooves clopped down the street. 5 riders came, led by a man in a fancy suit with a tilted hat. From the church steps, Reverend Bell watched them stop at the sheriff's office. The man, Merritt Hall from the railroad, fixed his jacket before going inside. His men, rough-looking, with guns, leaned against their saddles, watching the town like hawks. Through the sheriff's window, Bell saw Hall talking to Sheriff Wade, handing him money. Not much, but enough to make the sheriff nod. Inside the parsonage, the twins set the table for supper, carefully placing forks like Martha showed them. They looked so young, trying to get it right. Bell touched the deed in his pocket, thinking of Ruth's cleverness in hiding it, her faith that someone would help her girls. The sound of the railroad men's spurs jingled like a warning. A knock came at the door. Martha stood there with Boaz, their faces serious with news from the land office. "Come in," Bell said, showing them the deed. Ruth left them more. "Then memories." Martha's eyes lit up as she looked at the paper. "This is it. Official and everything. The land is theirs." Boaz watched through the window as Hall left the sheriff's office, fixing his tie. "Looks like we're not the only ones who want that land. We'd better make sure it's filed properly," Martha said firmly. "Tomorrow, we're seeing Elijah Flint." From the kitchen, the twins' laughter rang out as they set the table, so innocent compared to the plans brewing outside. The deed crackled as Martha folded it carefully, her movements sure. They had proof now. Proof of Ruth's claim and her daughter's inheritance. But would it be enough? The evening sun turned the church steeple gold as shadows grew long. In the parsonage kitchen, the twins called everyone to supper, happy to have a job to do, a place to belong. The adults shared looks, silently agreeing to keep their worries from the girls for now. There'd be time for that tomorrow. Morning. Sunlight shone on the general store's windows as Boaz tied his horse to the post. The wooden sidewalk creaked as he reached for the door. "Mr. McCrae," a smooth voice said. "A moment, please." Boaz turned to see Merritt Hall, the railroad man, in a fancy suit with a shiny watch chain. 2 of his men stood behind him, hands near their guns trying to look relaxed. "I think we can help each other," Hall said, pulling out an envelope. "There's $500 here. Good money for taking in 2 orphans." Boaz's face got hard. "The girls aren't for sale." "Come now," Hall said, his smile cold. "You know those kids need more than a mountain man can give. Think of their future. School, nice dresses, the life their mother wanted. Their mother wanted them to have their land," Boaz said quietly. "Their home." Hall's face cooled. "That land belongs to the railroad now. We have big plans. Progress you can't stop. Seems to me," Boaz said, "if it was all legal, you wouldn't be offering bribes." Hall stepped closer, his voice low. "Think carefully, Mr. McCrae. The frontier's dangerous. Accidents happen. It'd be sad if something happened to those girls in your care." Boaz's hands clenched, but he kept them still. That sounded like a threat. "Just advice," Hall said, fixing his tie. "You have until tomorrow to change your mind. After that, things might get tricky." Inside the store, Martha watched through the window, gripping a bolt of fabric. When Hall and his men rode off, she ran out. "You okay?" she asked, touching Boaz's arm. He nodded, still watching the riders. "We need a town meeting today." By afternoon, Reverend Bell's church was full. Farmers, shopkeepers, and ranchers sat in the pews. Martha sat with the twins up front while Boaz stood at the pulpit, his rough hands holding the edges. "Folks," Bell started, "we're here because 2 kids need our help. Their mother, Ruth Ellis, was known to many of you. She delivered your babies, cared for your sick. Now her daughters need us to protect them." Boaz cleared his throat, his voice rough from years of silence. 20 years ago, I did something awful. I stood by while good people lost everything. I've carried that shame ever since." His voice grew stronger. "But those girls found me. Their mama trusted me to make it right. I failed before. I won't again." A murmur spread through the crowd. Old Timothy Wheeler, who lost a leg in the war, spoke up. The railroad's been pushing folks around too long. I'm in. Me too, said Sarah Cooper from the store. Those girls need clothes. I'll help. One by one, people stood, offering what they could. Horse feed, blankets, taking turns keeping watch. At the back, a tall black man in a cavalry jacket stood. Sergeant Clive Matz, retired Buffalo soldier, he said. I'll take first watch tonight. Martha stepped forward, her face serious. Your help means everything, but we need to. Be clear, the girls' claim needs federal marshals to make it official. That could take weeks. Then we'll watch over them for weeks, Belle said. This is about who we are as a town. As night fell, hope lit up the town like lanterns. Families brought food to the parsonage. Kids played with the twins in the churchyard. Even the sheriff looked uneasy as he rode by, avoiding eyes. Sergeant Matz stood guard near the parsonage, rifle ready. Inside, Belle tucked the girls into a spare room, their one-eyed doll on the pillow. Sleep tight, little ones, he said, lighting a small lamp. And Boaz, too? Addie asked sleepily. Yes, child, Belle said. Boaz, too. The night was quiet at first. Too quiet, Martha later said. The moon shone bright over the church steeple. Matz paced his watch, boots soft in the dirt. Upstairs in the store, Boaz dozed in his chair, Ruth's letter in his hand. A crash of glass woke everyone. Belle reached the girls' room first. Martha, right behind. The window was broken, curtains blowing in the wind. The bed was empty, covers tossed back. On the pillow was a note, held down by a railroad spike. Martha's hands shook as she read, This is railroad land now. Outside, Matz was mounting his horse, his face tight with anger. Tracks in the dirt, he called. 4 or 5. Riders headed east. Boaz ran out, rifle in hand, his horse saddled. His eyes met Belle's across the yard. The preacher nodded once, understanding. They won't hurt the girls, Martha said firmly. They're too useful as leverage. She gathered her skirts. I'll send word to the marshal in Helena and the Cherokee Nation Council. Belle clasped Boaz's shoulder. Bring them home, brother. We'll be praying. The sound of hooves faded as Boaz and Matz rode out, following tracks in the moonlight. Behind them, lights glowed in every window of Whetstone Hollow, the town keeping watch for 2 little girls who'd brought them together. In the parsonage, Martha and Belle gathered. The girls' things, the one-eyed doll, their mother's Bible, the deed. Belle's hands lingered on their small shoes by the bed. Lord, he whispered, watch over them all. The empty room felt quiet without the girls' laughter, while outside, a coyote's howl rose to the stars. Dawn hadn't reached the sky when Boaz burst from the parsonage, checking his rifle and mounting his horse. Fear and anger fought in his chest, making it hard to breathe. The girls' empty bed haunted him, their shoes still neat by the bed, just as Ruth taught them. Hold steady, Martha called from the porch, her voice strong in the dark. Inside, Belle paced, his calm broken. Martha put her hands on his shoulders. Hosea, she said, we need your strength. Those girls need your prayers and wisdom. Belle straightened. You're right. I'll send a telegram to Missoula. Right away. The marshal needs to know. Outside, Boaz checked the ground by lantern light. Boot prints showed 4 or 5 men heading east. One set was deeper, likely carrying a child. His jaw tightened. Sergeant Matz rode up, ready as a soldier. I've got 6 men ready to ride, he said. Good men who know these hills. Thanks, Boaz said, climbing into his saddle. But I need to track alone first. Too many. Horses will mess up the trail. Martha came out with a leather medical bag. Take this, she said, handing it to him. In case the girls are hurt. Bandages, witch hazel, and my Cherokee remedies. The bag felt heavy with her trust. Boaz tied it to his saddle. More volunteers are at the church, Matz said. We'll organize search parties and try the sheriff if he'll help. Sheriff won't help, Martha said sharply. Saw him with Hall yesterday. He's paid off. Boaz rode off, then paused. If I'm not back by sundown, follow the eastern trail to Serpent Canyon. That's old surveyor country. The sky was just lightening when Boaz found the trail. He'd learned tracking from a Comanche scout during the war, how to read bent grass, moved pebbles, stories in the dirt. The kidnappers tried to hide their path, but they were rushed. By mid-morning, he found a sign, a tiny leather glove on a sagebrush. It was Addie's, dropped on purpose, he knew. Smart girl. Ruth raised them well. The trail led to rough land near Serpent Canyon. Boaz knew it. Railroad. Surveyors used it as a camp. He hid his horse in some trees and went on foot. The canyon's red walls rose like guards. Through his field glasses, he saw movement. 3 men on guard with rifles, 2 by a fire. In a small shelter, Addie and Ada sat, tied but upright, sharing a blanket. His chest tightened, but they looked. Okay. Merritt Hall paced nearby, his fancy suit out of place in the wild. He was upset, waving his arms as he talked to his men. Boaz was too far to hear, but he could tell things weren't going as planned. The sun moved across the sky as Boaz watched, noting guard changes and counting guns. As dusk turned the canyon purple, he backed away carefully. The girls were safe. For now, Hall needed them for leverage, but they wouldn't stay safe if he messed up the rescue. The moon was bright when he rode back to Whetstone Hollow. Lights glowed everywhere, the town still awake. A crowd gathered as he dismounted at the church. "Did you find them?" Martha asked, her face tight with worry. "They're alive," Boaz said. "Unharmed. Hall's got them in Serpent Canyon about 20 miles east. 5 armed men guarding." Reverend Bell came out. "I reached the marshal in Missoula. They're sending men, but it'll take 3 days. 3 days is too long," Matt said. "Those girls don't have 3 days." Boaz nodded. "We need to get them out ourselves, but it has to be careful. No shooting if we can avoid it." "The girls have seen enough violence," Martha said softly. Inside the church, they gathered around a table with a rough map Boaz drew in charcoal. He showed guard positions, weapons, and where the girls were. Matt's added his soldier know-how, suggesting paths and timing. "We go in before dawn," Boaz said. "When men are tired, guards are sleepy. We need 8 riders. Enough to show. Strength without starting a fight." "I've got the men," Matt said. "Already picked." Martha pulled her shawl tight. "I'm coming too. The girls might need a doctor." Bell started to argue, but she stopped him. "I've ridden tougher places, Reverend, and I knew their mother. I'm coming." As the others left to get ready, Bell grabbed Boaz's arm. "Brother," he said quietly, "I blamed you for that fire 20 years ago, but I see now what Ruth saw. A man trying to do right. God's with you tomorrow." Under the moon, Whetstone Hollow buzzed with action. Horses were checked, guns cleaned, supplies packed. In the church, Bell prayed, his words rising like smoke into the night. Tomorrow would come, but tonight they got ready. Somewhere in the dark, 2 little girls waited for the man their mother trusted to save them. The morning air was cold as Boaz stood in Martha's yard with the volunteers. Dawn was just breaking, painting the sky pink and gold. 5 people joined, him chosen for their skills. Sergeant Matt stood tall in his old soldier coat, his face set. Jonah 2 Rivers, a young Navajo scout, adjusted his medical bag, a gift from Martha. His sharp eyes scanned the horizon. Reverend Bell came out with his Bible wrapped in oilskin. 2 ranchers, Thomas Webb and Charlie Hawkins, checked their horses one last time. "Listen up," Boaz said, his voice rough in the morning quiet. "We're going in smart. No guns unless they shoot first." He looked at each person. "We're saving kids, not hunting bad guys. I don't want blood unless there's no choice." Matts nodded. "Better to outsmart them than outshoot them." Martha came out with supplies, dried meat, biscuits, bandages, and rope. "You'll need these," she said, handing them out. "And this too," she added, giving Boaz a pouch of her Cherokee healing herbs. The horses pawed the ground as supplies were packed. The frost was melting, and steam rose from the horses. Boaz climbed into his saddle, feeling the familiar creak. "Stick to low ground," Jonah said as they started. "Less chance of being seen." His Navajo and surveyor knowledge would help. A lot. They rode east, following creek beds when they could. The sun rose, burning off the mist. At noon, they stopped to rest the horses in a hidden spot. Boaz felt he had to tell the truth. He found Bell and Jonah eating dried beef and cornbread. "There's something you need to know," he said, his voice heavy. "About Ruth, why she trusted me." He sat on a log. 20 years ago, during the war's aftermath, I was a Union scout, got orders to clear out land. There was a camp. Cherokee. Freedmen. Ruth's people. His hands shook. They told us to burn them out. Said they were there illegally. I helped start those fires, watched people run. Women, kids. He looked at his hands. I got Ruth out, and some others. But I still helped light those flames. Been carrying that sin ever since. Silence hung, broken only by horse sounds. And wind. Bell spoke, his voice kind but firm. "This is your altar, Boaz," he said, touching his shoulder. "Time to make it right." Jonah nodded. "My people say healing starts when you face your pain." They reached the canyon's edge. As the sun set, painting the rocks red. From their spot, they saw Hall's camp below. 5 men guarding the girls in the shelter. "There's a guard on the main trail," Jonah said after scouting. "But there's an old game path down the north face. Steep, but doable." They camped, back from the rim, keeping their fire small. Bell gathered them in a circle. "Let's pray," he whispered, asking for wisdom and protection. Heads bowed as his prayer rose into the dark sky. Even the horses stood still. When it ended, Boaz felt a strange peace. Not no fear, but strength to face it. They took turns watching through the night. Boaz couldn't sleep, staring at the stars and thinking of Ruth's letter. She saw something good in him, even after everything. He hoped he could live up to it. An owl called 3 times, then stopped. Jonah looked up. "That's no owl," he whispered. "Someone's out there." Mats checked the darkness, then relaxed. "It's Martha," he said. She stepped out, leading her horse. "Couldn't let you men have all the fun," she said softly. "The girls might need a woman's touch." No one argued. They all knew Martha's strength and her tie to Ruth. She settled in like she belonged. The hours crawled by. Just before dawn, with the sky still black, Boaz gathered them. "We go in quiet," he said. "Jonah and I lead down the game trail. Mats, you and your men go south. Be ready if they run that way. Reverend Martha, stay with the horses until we signal. If it goes wrong, tell the marshal. The girls' rights need protecting." They checked ropes and kept guns holstered, a last resort. As dawn hinted in the sky, they moved. Boaz felt years lift off him. This was his chance to balance. The past, to honor Ruth's faith, to protect her girls. He touched her letter in his pocket, then nodded to the others. It was time. Bell's words echoed, "This is your altar, Boaz. Time to make it right." The sky was just lightening when Boaz and Jonah crept through the canyon shadows. Their soft shoes were silent on the rocks. The camp below was quiet, with one guard by a fading fire. Boaz's heart pounded as they waited for Mats's signal. The plan was simple. Mats and Bell would make a noise on the ridge to distract the guards. A screech owl's call broke the quiet, 3 short bursts. Rocks clattered down the canyon and shouts followed. 3 of Hall's men ran toward the noise. "Guns out!" "Now," Boaz whispered. They moved low through the brush. Jonah checked the path like a shadow. The last guard was turned toward the noise, his back to them. The girls' shelter was just canvas, quickly set up. Boaz's hands shook as he lifted the canvas edge. The girls were curled together on blankets, their hands tied. "Addie, Ada," he whispered. Ada's eyes opened, and she almost sobbed seeing him. Addie woke, hiding her face in her sister's shoulder to stay quiet. "Shh," Boaz soothed, cutting their ropes with his knife. "We're going home." A gun's click stopped him. Cold sweat ran down his back as he turned. One of Hall's men stood there, rifle aimed, but he looked unsure, his eyes troubled. "Mister," Boaz said quietly, "these are kids." The man's jaw moved. He looked at the twins, then back at Boaz. "I didn't sign up for this," he muttered, lowering his gun. "Taking land's one thing, stealing kids." He shook his head. "Get them out." Boaz didn't wait. He grabbed both girls, Jonah watching behind. Ada clung to his neck, her tears wetting his shirt. Addie was quiet, but held his shirt tight. They slipped into thick brush by the creek. The sky was lightening, painting the canyon purple and gold. Dawn was coming too fast. A horse's sharp cry broke the air, followed by hooves. Merritt Hall's angry voice rang out. "What do you mean they're gone?" "Sir, The guard who let them go didn't finish. "Find them," Hall shouted. "$500 to whoever brings them back." Boaz held the girls tighter as horses thundered past. Jonah led them to a narrow gap between boulders. They squeezed through just as riders hit the brush they'd left. "This way," Jonah whispered, guiding them along a hidden path through juniper and sage close to the canyon wall. Ada whimpered when a branch scratched her cheek. Boaz wanted to comfort her, but there was no time. Hall's men were spreading out, searching like dogs. A shot rang out, the bullet hitting rocks above. Addie squeaked in fear. "Run to Jonah," Boaz said softly, setting them down. "Don't look back." The girls ran while Boaz turned to face the men. He didn't want to shoot. The girls had seen enough, but he could slow the men down. He fired 2 shots high, making Hall's men duck. Jonah led the twins up a steep path toward Matt's and the horses. Boaz backed up, keeping himself between the girls and danger. More shots hit the rocks around him. "McCrae!" Hall's voice echoed. "You're stealing railroad property." "They're kids, Hall!" Boaz yelled back. "Not property!" He ran, catching up to the others. The path got steeper, making them crawl. Ada's breaths were scared gasps. Jonah picked her up, and Boaz grabbed Addie. The sound of Hall's men got closer. They were on foot now. The path narrowed, trapping them, then opened to a shelf where Matt's waited with horses. Martha was there, helping the girls onto her horse. Belle held Boaz's horse, looking worried. "Riders on the main trail, too," Matt said. "We need to move." They mounted fast, Martha keeping the twins safe. Jonah rode with Matt's. They pushed, their horses toward the ridge. Hall's voice came again, closer. "There they are. Don't let them reach the rim." Bullets hit the dirt near the horses' hooves. The animals snorted but kept climbing. Boaz stayed at the back, watching for Hall's men. He saw Hall raise his rifle, but Belle's horse kicked up rocks, making Hall stumble. That gave them time. They reached the ridge as the sun rose, lighting their escape in gold. Hooves thundered behind as Hall's men gained ground, their horses sweaty. Martha kept the twins close, her horse moving carefully on the narrow trail. Matts and Belle rode on either side, protecting her. "There's a clearing ahead," Jonah called, pointing to an open spot by a steep ravine. "But it's a dead end." Boaz knew they couldn't outrun Hall forever. "Head to the clearing," he said. "We'll stand there." They burst into the open, stopping short at the ravine's edge, a 100-foot drop into mist. They turned, their horses as Hall and his men appeared. "Spread out," Matt said quietly. The townsfolk lined up, their horses nervous. Martha moved her horse back, shielding the girls. Hall raised his hand, and his men drew guns. His face was red with anger as he rode forward. "You're making this worse, McCrae," he growled. "Those girls are on railroad land. Their mother's claim is no good." Boaz got off his horse slowly, stepping forward with arms wide, standing between Hall's men and the twins, who watched with scared eyes. "They're kids, Hall," he said. "Flesh and blood, not property." "The law says otherwise," Hall sneered, pulling a paper from his coat. "I have the deed right here." Tension crackled like a storm. Behind Boaz, guns clicked, ready. His hand stayed empty, open in the morning light. "Last chance, McCrae," Hall warned. "Step aside or United States Marshal," a strong voice shouted. "Everyone hold your positions." 2 riders came from the trees. The marshal's badge shone on the first man's chest as he rode into the clearing, his deputy behind, both with rifles ready. "I got a telegram about kidnapped kids and land fraud," the marshal said, looking over the scene. "Looks like we got here just in time." Hall's face paled. "Marshal Davis, I can explain. These men are messing with railroad business." "Save it, Hall," the marshal said, riding closer. "That deed in your hand. Show it to me." Hall handed it, over reluctantly. The marshal looked at it, then gave it to his deputy. "Just as I thought. This paper's like the ones from a forgery ring in Missoula last month." He stared at Hall. "The governor's office is real interested in railroad men stealing freedmen's land with fake deeds. These accusations," Hall started, but the marshal cut him off. "Everyone lower your weapons," he ordered. Slowly, guns were put away. "Deputy, take their firearms." As the deputy collected guns, the marshal turned to Boaz. I assume you have proof of the kid's claim. Bell rode forward, pulling out the Bible with Ruth's deed. Right here, Marshal. Properly filed and signed. The marshal checked it and nodded. Looks real. We'll verify it, but for now, he sat tall. Merritt Hall, you're under arrest for fraud, kidnapping, and conspiracy. Deputy, cuff him. Hall's face twisted as the deputy handcuffed him. His men started slipping away, not wanting to get caught. The twins held on to Martha, Ada hiding in her shawl, Addie watching Hall get taken away. Boaz's legs wobbled with relief. Bell steadied him. You did it, friend, he said softly. You made it right. The sun rose higher, clearing the mist below. The danger passed without a shot fired. Justice won by law, not guns. Over the next few days, the marshal's investigation moved fast. In the town hall, Marshal Davis sat at a big desk, checking Ruth's deed against records. Morning light came. Through dusty windows. Everything's in order, he said to the crowd. The date, signatures, and seal are real. This deed gives the Ellis land to Addie and Ada, their mother's true heirs. Martha squeezed the girls' hands as they stood beside her in new dresses she'd sewn. Addie stood proud. Ada leaned shyly against her. The town council met that afternoon. Mayor Thompson, a kind-eyed man, started the meeting with 3 gavel taps. We're here to talk about the Ellis land and its heirs. Councilman Jenkins, the store owner, stood. I say we hold the land in trust for the girls until they're grown. We can rebuild what was lost. Seconded, said Sarah Miller, the teacher. These kids are ours now. We protect them. The vote was unanimous. Even stingy Mr. Peterson agreed. After the meeting, Martha and Bell planned the girls' future at a corner table. Martha wrote numbers. They'll need books, warm clothes, proper beds, she said, and money for school later. Bell nodded. I'll ask the church to start an education fund. These girls are smart. They should have every chance. That evening, the marshal called Boaz to his office. Boaz shifted in his chair as the marshal showed him guardianship papers. The girls need a guardian to protect them and raise them right. Their mother's letter named you Mr. McCrae. Will you take it on? Boaz looked at the papers, his hands shaking. I'm not sure I'm good enough, he whispered. Been alone so long. The best parents often doubt themselves, the marshal said. Those girls trust you. That's something. Boaz took the pen, eyes misty, and signed. I'll do right by them, he promised. For Ruth, for them. That night, the church hall glowed with light. The quilting circle decorated with pine boughs and paper chains. Tables were full of cornbread, apple pies, and fried chicken. Addie and Ada sat with Boaz, amazed at the party. Bell stood to pray. Lord, thank you for these kids. Guide us to help them grow. Make us worthy of this trust. Martha shared the education fund news, and people clapped. Families pledged help. Even the telegraph man offered lessons. As night fell, Boaz watched. The twins play by the punch bowl. Ada joined a game of cat's cradle, and Addie taught a clapping game Ruth showed them. Bell sat beside Boaz. You've done something big, Boaz, he said. You helped us remember what community is. Boaz nodded, his throat tight. In saving the girls, he'd found his way home. Spring turned to summer in Whetstone Hollow. Wildflowers bloomed purple and gold, and warm breezes carried pine scents. In a small cabin outside town, life grew new. Boaz stood before a cloudy mirror, shaving his gray beard. Soap foam fell as years of wildness dropped away, showing a face he'd almost forgotten. From the kitchen, the twins' giggles surprised him each morning. You look different, Ada said, touching his smooth chin. Addie nodded, setting plates on the table. Guess I do, Boaz said, feeling his face. Sunlight streamed through. Clean windows with gingham curtains, Martha helped the girls sew. 3 days a week, Boaz watched the twins skip to Martha's schoolhouse with slates and lunch pails. While they learned, he fixed fences on their land, his hands remembering old skills. Other days, he taught them about the land. At the creek, he showed them how to spot fish. See where the water breaks by that log? He'd say. That's where the big ones hide. Addie was great at fishing. Ada liked drawing butterflies on her slate. Both soaked up his lessons like thirsty ground. When Martha gave them ponies, Boaz taught them to ride, making small stirrups for. "A horse feels your fear," he told Ada, helping her into the saddle. "Trust yourself, and they'll trust you." Nights were harder. Boaz woke sweating, old fires in his dreams. One night, as he sat shaking, Addie padded over in her nightgown and crawled into his bedroll, her warmth pulling him back from the past. "You don't have to be scared, Papa," she whispered, holding his hand. Boaz's heart caught at Papa. He never asked for it, never thought he could replace Ruth, but her small body steadied him, and the nightmares faded. He pulled the blanket over her and slept till dawn. Spring bloomed bright in Whetstone Hollow. Apple trees flowered pink and white, and meadowlarks sang. At the town hall, Mayor Harrison read a letter from the railroad, apologizing for Hall's crimes and promising to fix things. Martha nodded as the letter promised money for landowners. Belle smiled. Justice came, even if late. The town voted to keep the railroad east, protecting their peace. On Ruth's land, Boaz worked from dawn to dusk, using her planting journal to bring her garden back. "Your mama knew this land," he told the girls as they cleared vines. "She wrote it all down, like you do in school." The girls loved the garden, finding Ruth's notes in the journal, about butterflies or when to pick corn. Each page showed more of their mother. One afternoon, Martha visited, finding Boaz planting roses. The twins watered vegetables, giggling. She saw tears on Boaz's cheeks. He didn't hide them, just pointed to the garden. "She loved this place," he said, voice rough. "Her journal shows it, her hope for growing things." He touched a rosebud. "And now they will, too. These girls will know her through every flower." Martha touched his shoulder. The garden wasn't just plants. It was Ruth's memory for her daughters. Each sprout was a tie to her dreams. The Montana evening painted the sky purple and gold. As Boaz sat on the cabin porch in a rocking chair, Addie and Ada sat on his knees, wrapped in Martha's quilt. The chair creaked with bird song and distant cattle sounds. Fireflies sparkled, and Addie tried to catch one. The air smelled of Ruth's roses, blooming along the path. "Mr. Boaz," Addie said softly, "are we staying here forever?" The question hung in the air. Boaz held them closer, rocking gently. "As long as God lets us, darlings," he said. Voice thick, Ada snuggled close, holding his shirt. The moment felt like a blessing until hooves sounded on the path. Reverend Bell rode up, his silver hair bright in the dusk. "Evening, Brother Bo," he called, climbing the steps. The girls hugged his legs, making him laugh. Boaz pointed to an empty chair. "What brings you out, Reverend?" Bell sat, pulling a paper from his pocket. The town council voted to put Ruth's name on the founding plaque, where it belongs. The girls' faces lit up. "There's more," Bell said. "They're building a school on Ruth's land for freedmen and Cherokee kids, just like she wanted." Tears filled Boaz's eyes, remembering Ruth's love for learning. Her dream was coming true on her land. Later, Boaz sat by the girls' beds reading from Ruth's Bible, her favorite psalms marked with pressed flowers. As they fell asleep, Ada's voice came softly. "You're our papa now." The words hit Boaz's heart. Tears fell as he smoothed their hair. "No, sweet pea," he whispered. "I'm just the man God sent to keep you safe till you find your way home." But looking at their peaceful faces, Boaz knew they'd found home, and so had he. In saving them, he found his own forgiveness and grace. Thanks for listening. Stories connect us in surprising ways. If you felt something today, subscribe. I share a new one every day, and the next might brighten yours.